Hello, I'm your host, Effie Pilarino, and today I'm connecting with Caroline Hughes, who is the CEO and co-founder of Lifetise, which is a consumer-facing fintech in the metaverse. We'll be talking about that more. And she's also one of the activators of the community, the SheEO community, and many more things. We'll have the opportunity. Let me welcome you, Caroline, and thank you for taking the time to be with us.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. Thanks so much for having me, Effie.
You know, let's tell our listeners that we have met not in person yet, right? We met also through another fantastic online community with a lot of focus on empowering women. It's a Web3 community called Units Network, right? That's how we got to know each other. And for me, you are one of those model figures. I'm so glad that I saw recently that you were awarded or the community of what's the name of the community that created this amazing NFT of you?
Oh yeah, Pantheon CG. So they created this incredible set of NFTs, and it's gods and goddesses. So I've been immortalized somehow as a goddess. And yeah, it's brilliant. It's a collection. It's a woman called Lindsay Rosenthal, and she has created this collection to celebrate a number of men and women in the Web3 space who are creating, supporting, and building.
Yeah, I saw that, and I was so, happy for you. I will share with our listeners the link so they can see you also in this metamorphosis of a goddess, right?
Yes, and it was, and it had my purple hair back. So pre-pandemic, I had purple hair. So we went with that because we thought that's a little bit more Web3.
Right, exactly. And Caroline, tell us about your background. I know that you are a lawyer, a tech lawyer. So tell us a little bit about that journey to today, and then we can talk about the SheEO community.
Great, thank you. So yes, so I started out life as a lawyer, and I specialized in technology. So I was an intellectual property lawyer for many years, but I was always fascinated by very, very new and emerging tech. So I remember going through the very first stages of e-commerce, and then before we even had sort of proper mobile phones, before we had smartphones, we were talking about m-commerce, which was how could we transact over mobile. And then we had things like smart cards to be able to, tap into places. And that was that was almost like a precursor to NFTs, because you could start to have digital assets effectively that you could take with you, whether that was for kind of vouchers or gift rewards. And we started to see that emerging. And so I was always kind of in this space with people doing very creative things with technology. But then I also loved fashion. So I worked in the fashion industry and in advertising for a number of years. And I think it was because I always wanted to be alongside people who were creating incredible things and doing things at kind of the cutting edge. And even within this fashion space, we did a lot of digital work. So I was part of a team where we did the first kind of holographic fashion show as part of London Fashion Week. And
when was that, Caroline?
That was back in, I'm going to say that was back in maybe around sort of 2009.
Wow.
Yeah, and so you started to see the convergence of technology with fashion, because of course all the people in the fashion world are very, very interested in how can you merge different disciplines, how do you merge different art styles to create something that's new. So whether it's kind of the work that Alexander McQueen was doing, where he was kind of, do you remember the time that he had on stage the robotic arm that spray painted the dress? And so you were starting to see at that time, kind of the late 2000s, early 2010, people combining digital technology and fashion. And I was super, super excited about that. And then I also worked around kind of digital advertising. And again, it's always at the kind of transaction of digital, creative, and commerce. That's where I really, really sit.
Amazing, amazing. And you know, if we look today in finance and fintech, we're seeing a lot of innovation exactly at the convergence of commerce, be it physical in store or e-commerce, and you know, embedded finance is really, you know, flourishing in that convergence. And already, you know, with the metaverse, we're going to be seeing even more of these creations, experimentations, depending on what you're talking about. Caroline, before we dive into um, Lifetise and what you're doing now, tell us your role and passion in this digital online community, the SheEO. What is that all about? What does an activator mean?
Yeah, so SheEO is a community where they practice what's known as radical generosity. So it's a way of women funding other women to create global businesses. But it differs from, say, a VC fund or angel investment, because effectively, as an activator, you are giving your money into the community with no expectation of a return on your investment, other than you see the community thrive and these ventures that you're backing thrive. So this is why it's called an act of radical generosity, because you're not being like an angel investor where you're putting in your money to make a return on the investment. You're putting in your money as a way to create a perpetual fund that continues to fund these women-led ventures that are coming through. So the way that it works is that you put your money into this collective pot, and then every year we select a number of ventures that must be run, they must be co-owned at least 50% by a woman or non-binary person. And each of those ventures that is backed by the collective gets not just money, but support. They have a whole program where we help them with contacts, we help them, get clients, we help them fill any gaps in their business that they might need, whether it's marketing expertise, financial expertise. And then these ventures that are backed, they pay back that money over 5 years. And so it creates this perpetual pot of money that can then help support the next round of ventures and the next round of ventures. And it's because it's a completely different model, because the expectation as an activator isn't I'm putting my money in to get more money out, it's I'm putting my money in for this kind of greater good. And
Caroline, when you first described this, I was like, okay, this is like donation crowdfunding. But then when you said that, whoever the companies, the women that you select to invest in, then they are sort of committed to reinvest in that pool, then that changes everything.
Changes everything. It's perpetual. It's like no other model for funding sort of startups that exists. And I think it is because, yes, the perpetual nature of it, but also because it is called radical generosity, it extends not just to putting your money in, but everybody is genuinely invested collectively in helping these businesses thrive. And so it's the most open, supportive, generous network that I've ever been part of.
And when was this launched? Where are we today? Give us some figures in terms of,
It's been going for several years. It started in Canada. It was founded by a incredible woman called Vicky Saunders in Canada. And it's now in Canada, the US, Australia, New Zealand, the UK. I don't think I've missed anywhere, but there may be. And so there are, thousands of activators, and there are hundreds of ventures that have been backed. And so it just creates this ever expanding network of people who are in together to make it happen.
And is this network only for women? I mean, I understand that you're only supporting women-led, but can men join this community?
So men don't join, but men can effectively sponsor somebody else. So what you find is you might find corporates where they are sponsoring women to join, or you may find husbands or partners effectively paying for their spouse or their daughter. And so one of the interesting things about this community is you have activators who are anywhere from in their teens all the way through to their 80s.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. And this started when?
Oh, I'm going to say maybe about 7 or 8 years ago.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a fantastic. And is there any type of focus in terms of selecting ventures? You know, is it tech? Is it, you know, health? Is it education? Finance? Anything like that?
It can cross everything, but they must be working on one or more of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So again, the idea is that these are businesses that have a purpose beyond just a transactional, pure commercial thing. So the businesses do tend to be working on things around climate change and sustainability, or, you know, empowering women, and so whilst these are all commercial businesses, and it's very important, you know, it's not a charitable enterprise, they have to have very strong commercials. They have to be businesses that are capable of going global. They have to have strong metrics, strong leadership, all the things that you would look for in a venture. But they are working on one or more of the SDGs.
Very interesting. So in your capacity with these hats, I know that recently you gave a talk at Women in Tech Global Conference. Unfortunately, I missed it, and I would really like to hear some of the highlights, at least, because you were focused on highlighting and putting the spotlight on women in Web3, right?
Yeah. And honestly, I can't even tell you, like, it was one of my favorite talks that I've ever given. There is something absolutely joyous about being able to share other people's stories. You know, as an entrepreneur, I spend a lot of my time telling my own story, and that's great and I enjoy it. But there's something wonderful and really inspiring about being able to look outside of what I'm building to see who are all the other people in the space doing incredible things, and can I give them a shout out? Can I help them get a little bit more visibility? And so, yeah, I just did a roll call. So my talk was like the incredible women building in the metaverse, and I broke it down into a series of kind of categories. So who's building in extended reality. And so I was able to talk about people like Antonia Forster, who has just won an award as part of the Tribeca Festival for her LGBTQ museum that she's created, which is this immersive museum that has in AR, and it has all of these incredible artifacts and stories from the LGBTQ community. And it's the first time we've seen a museum like this, but the way that it's been curated and the way that she's using technology means that as you go around the space responds to you and how you're interacting with it. So different things will pop up depending on how you are feeling and how you're kind of moving through the space. And that's something that has been so carefully thought about. How do you create that sense of wonder and exploration and kind of the spontaneity that you might find in a real life museum, where you're just able to kind of wander through and find different things? And Antonio has really kind of thought about how do you bring that to life in a 3D virtual space. And I think that's amazing. And I spoke about Kai Fraser, who has a company called Kai XR, where she's an educator in the US, and she realized that there are tons of students in the US that never got to go on field trips, never got to go and visit incredible places. And so she's created a virtual reality experiences where they go and they do an immersive film of, you know, either you're going to the White House or you're going to various places, and then children can just watch it and experience it as if they're there. And isn't that an amazing use of this technology to transport people to places that they otherwise can't get to.
Yeah.
And so for me, look, you can tell by how animated I am just talking about these things.
Yeah.
It was such a wonderful talk to be able to give, to showcase all of these amazing things. And what I'll do, Effie, is I'll share, I've got a Twitter thread of all of the women's projects that I shared, and I'll share it with you, and you can share it with your community so they can see some of these incredible
That would be really wonderful. And of course, we'll share later when your talk becomes available from the conference organizers. But it's really, there's so many creations happening. We cannot keep up. And I'm amazed, like a kid, when I listen to you and other people in this space share, what they have seen, the innovations that are happening. And also, like with the news, I mean, there's bad news too, and there's scams, and there's projects out there that, is that what we need? Kind of, you think of them, but at the same time, there are so many good things happening out there, and it's wonderful to focus on that. And of course, on women, we want more women, but we have already some wonderful women that are doing amazing things. So let's focus on the good things, right?
100%. And exactly what you just said, there are so many people who are just getting on and building and having a real impact on specific communities. And they might not get all of the airtime. They might not be the people who are picked as speakers at the big conferences, but actually the work that they're doing is both so innovative and so creative, but genuinely has a purpose. We talk a lot in this space about separating speculation from utility. Well, the ones that are kind of coming through for me have so much utility built in. It's only utility. There's no speculation part to what they're building. They're so thoughtful, they're so considered, and they're so well designed for a very particular audience. And I think those are the projects we're going to see more of. As we're hitting a bear market, I think the ones that will rise are those which have genuine purpose for a real community.
Yeah, and I think that we're going to swing to that other extreme. The extreme that we've been living in is this, focus on DeFi, on finance, on yields, and the speculation and the pumping of tokens and so on. And now we're going to swing over to the other extreme, where we're looking really for businesses with purpose and with impact. I mean, it's saddening how this meltdown occurred. It's not only saddening because a lot of people must have lost a lot of money, but it's what has happened and the lessons that have become clear in terms of the lack of governance, the lack of risk management, the focus on greed and copying each other and creating these webs. And I mean, I don't want to get into this dark discussion here. I want to ask you, let's talk about Lifetise. How are you into fintech? And just tell us a little bit about how it all started. And I know from earlier chats that we've had that initially it was not in the metaverse, and you pivoted and so on. So tell us a little bit about that journey.
Yeah,
From fashion to finance.
From fashion to finance. I mean, who knew? But interestingly, we were always thinking metaverse back before metaverse became such a common word. So when we envisaged Lifetise, it was always a virtual world that allowed you to play out all of your life decisions in advance. So effectively transport yourself into future you in all of the things that you wanted in life. And then we would show you how you could afford it and achieve it in real life. So, our inspiration was always things like, could we build the Sims for your real life so that you can have a way of interacting and visualizing with different things you wanted to achieve, whether that's you wanted to buy a home or start a family or figure out how to pay for your next vacation or your kids' college fund, whatever those elements of your life were that you wanted to achieve. How do we help you play that in advance and then show you how to do it in real life? So for us, whilst we were kind of in the Web 2 world, we actually had to tone down our vision because fintech in the way that it had been created in Web 2 wasn't quite ready for everything that we wanted to bring. If we look at what fintech has done so well, it's done brilliantly at digitizing traditional processes. So to make them more efficient and much more intuitive for users, but effectively we're doing the same things. We're banking, we're kind of getting digital mortgages, whatever it might be, but it's still quite 2D. It's numbers on a screen, you can see transactions, but there's nothing really that you get to kind of play with. There was still nothing that was helping you understand what do I do with my money if I want to achieve certain things, right? It was all very much looking at budgeting and spending and seeing how you spent your money, but still what was lacking was something that allows you to kind of see into the future and then be like, okay, here's what I want to do. And now please show me the path to get there. So that's what Lifetise is. And now that everybody is very kind of comfortable and getting comfortable with this idea of the metaverse, it means that we can make this much, much more immersive. So all of the stuff that we kind of had on the back burner, waiting for people to be ready, we can now bring to the fore. So now we can actually make it so that you choose all of your life goals, whatever it is that you want your life to look like. You can play that in our virtual world. So as you're kind of selecting your goals, we'll visualize them for you. So you can visualize the type of house that you want. You can visualize if you want to buy NFTs and have them in your virtual home. And they're, of course, they're assets. So we show you how much all of this is worth. And we combine it in this space that allows you to explore what your life looks like, but then make it happen in real life. So it combines kind of the best of both worlds, that you get all of the benefit of virtual visualization, but it's all about making it real for you. So it's not just a virtual space for entertainment. It's a virtual world that is all about, okay, but now let's take that back into the real world and make it happen.
Amazing, amazing. And this is consumer facing what you're doing, or is it something that a traditional bank or a traditional fintech, I would say by now, since a lot of them are grown up, right, could deploy?
So both, yes. So we are consumer first, because effectively that's who we're serving. And what we've done very well, I think, over the years is, and this is why I love Web3 as well, because Web3 is all about being community first. And we've always been community first. We've always built in public. We've always put out our products to the world and said, how do we make these better? What is it that you actually need? What are we missing? Have we got this right? And so we've effectively always co-created with our community to make sure that what we're building actually serves them well. But the technology that we've built, yes, we are talking with a number of banks. We are talking with a number of fintechs, because essentially we're the layer that sits on top of their financial products. So, and we bridge both traditional finance. So we work with mortgage providers, loan providers, credit card providers, pension providers, the whole works in terms of the traditional financial products you might like. But now we're also starting to work with DeFi partners. So we've recently received some funding from Aave, for example, as one of our cornerstone partners, to be able to show consumers that there is an alternative to traditional financial products. So you could choose to take a loan out through a bank, or if you hold, crypto assets, you could choose to take a loan out through one of the DeFi protocols. And for us, we believe that in the future, we're going to see everyone financing their lives with a mix of TradFi, DeFi, and NFTs. And our job at Lifetise is to show people how they can do that and just make it much, much more easy for them to understand and more accessible.
I mean, I was going to ask you about, you mentioned buying a home or, a property, which is, a very traditional, classic item, in our traditional life. But what about real estate in the virtual world? Is that like, could I come into Lifetise and see, well, I've actually been dreaming of buying a virtual apartment, of my first apartment when I moved to New York to get my first job on Wall Street. I am dying if I could buy it. It's like, such a souvenir and memory of where I was, how I started my professional life, and just, being in Manhattan on Wall Street in the 90s. I'd love to do that. But what do I do? Do I finance it, from my savings, which are in whatever dollars, euros, Swiss francs, or do I do what you said, use some of my cryptos as collateral to do that? And I'd love to come and explore that. So is that the type of thing that can be done, or you envision that we'll be doing more frequently?
Yes, there's going to be a mix. So we always say that we sit at the intersection between like traditional finance, DeFi, and then also sort of physical assets and digital assets. So 100%. So we are going to find, and this is what's going to be so, so fascinating, because we always say that as a platform, we have such a unique ability to understand what modern financial lives look like. Because when people come onto our platform, they are creating their life goals, and it's everything from the time that you leave school all the way through to retirement. So you can come into our platform at any age and you can model out, the next 2, 5, 10 years, whatever you want to do. And we will show you how you can finance different parts of it with a mix of whatever savings, loans you might want to take in the traditional world, but also, as you say, with your crypto assets. And it's all about the way that we design everything is to help people understand what levers they control, right? So you can play it. So you can say, okay, if I were to buy this souvenir of my first apartment in Manhattan, if I were to use savings, what impact would that have on my finances then looking into the future? Or if I were to use crypto, what impact would that have? So it's about helping people, that ability to play decisions virtually and get a sense of the outcome so that you can actually decide, am I better going with route A or route B? And it's something we've never had before. We've never had that ability to kind of look a little bit into the future and say, if I choose this path, what might happen? And versus if I choose the other path. So we always think about it. I don't know if you ever had those books as a child called Choose Your Own Adventure, where you would get to the end of a chapter and it would give you different choices to skip ahead to different parts. Yeah. And effectively, this is what we're doing with our virtual world. It's that ability to choose a path and effectively see how it plays out. And then if you don't like the look of that, okay, you rewind and you choose a different one. And yeah, that's what we're getting to. And we honestly think that, the idea of buying virtual things as souvenirs, as nostalgia, or even as motivation. So imagine that you want to buy a house in the real world, but you can't get there yet, but you want motivation for that. So you're going to buy the NFT, the land or the house or whatever it might be, and build that for yourself to inspire you to keep taking the steps to save towards your real world goal. That's really what this kind of immersive experience allows you to do.
which is like, you know, what a lot of coaches talk about, you know, visualizing, you know, whether it's drawing or sitting and meditating and visualizing and so on. And here we are, we can walk into this immersive world, whether it is in, I don't know, you know, the sandboxes of the world, or in other ways where you wear the Oculus hardware and you walk in there and so on. That is an amazing thing. So how do you think of the difference between, you know, the Roblox world, that's gaming, but I mean, now I'm hearing that it's also about, you know, working together in a virtual environment. Do you see similarities with what you're doing? And I mean, I'm curious to even ask, is your vision to take this into a business world? Meaning, you know, why not? The company is an entity that plans, you know, maybe not to buy a house, but other goals, right? And so on. And then those goals need to be planned and financed and managed and so on.
Yeah, 100%. So it's about that ability for one or more people to be able to collectively plan and visualize. So when we think about it for individuals, for their personal finance, it's you as an individual, it's you if you're part of a couple or a family or a group, to be able to like put all your things together and say, okay, I've got my piece of this. How does it combine? And then what can we create collectively? And the same for businesses. You know, businesses even more so do cash flow forecasting. They're having to understand what their balance sheet looks like, you know, where their assets lie. And they're continually modeling effectively. You know, how you have teams of accountants who are doing this within businesses. And right now they're working with fairly rudimentary tools. You know, I mean, Excel is an incredible program, and you have then the sort of the digital versions that allow people to do cash flow forecasting. But imagine if, as a team, you didn't just have the finance function, but you had the finance function and all the business units being able to visualize collectively, okay, what are we actually doing here? What is the business goals that we're trying to achieve? And then can we show you kind of the best, medium, and worst case scenarios as we play it out? And can we collectively see if we tweak this, what impact might it have? So yeah, the goal is that anytime you are effectively trying to forecast your finances and work towards common goals, you'll be able to do it on our platform.
Amazing. And I'm understanding from you that this is also like it's a platform really where, you know, the different providers, like in the 2D world that we live now, right? We like it's really an application of open banking, open finance, not in the 2D world, but in the 3D world.
Yes, that's exactly it. It's combining, you're exactly right. It's combining open banking, open finance. So it's so that we have the reality of people's finances, right? Because that's very, very important. We can't just have this utopian modeled version of your life that bears no reflection on the reality of your life. So we need to be able to show you what is possible within the constraints of your actual finances. It's no good if you're just modeling a complete fantasy life that's never attainable. So we take open banking and open finance and pull that in, so we have that clear view of your finances. And then of course on the crypto asset side, we're doing the same to give you that holistic view of both your fiat and your crypto assets, right? Because that is the baseline. And then from there, you can model anything that you want to do, but we're showing you what is possible with the money that you actually have. So it's very, very important. And then the other piece, which really is the game changer, is the fact that because people are modeling exactly what they're trying to do, we have this incredible intent data that nobody else has. You know, it's the type of intent data that, say, Google has when you're searching. and it knows precisely what it is that you're trying to achieve. Well, of course, we have that because people are telling us, I'm trying to buy a house in 2 years, and then I'd like to start a family, and I'm going to need a family car. So they're modeling very, very specifically around, here's what I'm trying to achieve at this point in time. And so it allows us to be able to make recommendations for the right products, financial and other products that they're going to need. And that's really a game changer because no other platform has that intent data. All of the banks and other fintechs, they're working on data that they can infer from people's transactions, whereas we're working on data that people are giving us about their specific intent. And that makes it completely different.
Very, 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 very interesting. So before we close, I mean, we could be talking for hours on these topics, and it's interesting that I feel your energy and passion through Zoom. It's just amazing, just amazing. What is the business development stage of Lifetise right now?
Yeah, so we've been live in the UK market for a number of years. So we've had over 40,000 users. We have some incredible product partners from Habito and Trussell and PensionBee. So we work with amazing partners who are also kind of at the cutting edge of fintech and digital finance. And so the next stage for us is, we're planning our own token launch. And, we've started to work with DeFi partners. We also receive funding from Near Foundation, an amazing sort of layer 1 protocol. So we're really starting to build out all of our relationships to map who are the DeFi and other providers in the Web3 space who best fit our vision and can be those kind of cornerstone products for our audience. And then we've found that we've been incredibly welcomed within the Web3 kind of community. So very quickly, we built up a Telegram community of over 60,000 people. So we were, coming from kind of Web 2 to Web 3, we weren't sure what level of interest, but we've been absolutely blown away by the fact that, within the crypto community itself, people are saying, yes, I want this because I've been building up my crypto assets, but how do I actually use them for my real life? So yeah, we've had an incredible reaction, both from kind of the blue chips within the crypto space, but also from individuals who have said, this is the thing that's kind of been missing, that consumer layer that helps me understand what I get for my money. If I'm in this crypto space, if I'm using DeFi, what does it do for me?
Excellent, excellent. So before we close, Caroline, I want to go back to the SheEO community. And can you tell our listeners, if they're interested to get involved and be part of this, what would you suggest?
Yeah, so what I'll do is I'll share the links with you, but it's basically, if they Google SheEO, that's SheEO, they will go to the website, which is SheEO World, and it's really clearly signposted for how you can get involved. So they hold regular calls for prospective new activators. So these are the people who are paying in their money to support the ventures. But equally, if you are running a business that is working on one or more of the UN's SDGs, and you would like to apply for a venture, there is a lot of information about how you do that. So different countries kind of have a slightly different timetable, but they'll have a venture application open and you'll just be able to kind of go through that process. And it's just a genuinely supportive community. So they're very, very happy for people to reach out and just get involved.
Caroline, I mean, I'm hearing, this spotlight on digital communities with amazing female energy and focus on purposeful ventures that is really inspiring and gives me hope in this weird macroeconomic conditions that we are all living that are not easy. They are very challenging. Plus the DeFi meltdown is not a pleasurable experience for the sector. So we need more and more this inspiration that you brought to us today.
Great, thank you so much.